Today I'm going to tell you a story about Cinderella and how she showed her kindness to everyone. Far across the ocean in a tiny village, an old gentleman lived with his young, beautiful daughter. A few years after his wife died, he married an old woman with 2 daughters. Hoping to find someone kind to care for his own daughter. His new wife, however, turned out to be selfish and cruel. The 2 sisters were just like their mother, vain and rude. They would prim at their mirror and find fault with everyone else. The old man's daughter was just the opposite. She was beautiful, kind, and good, and she loved animals. One terrible winter, the old gentleman became ill and died, leaving his daughter alone with a selfish step and 2 wicked stepsisters. The stepsisters were mean and took pleasure in teasing the poor girl. "Do you think that we would play with you?" cheered Capricia, delighted to see her cry. Away went her lovely clothes. Instead, they gave her torn dresses. "Just see how pretty our well-dressed girl is now," Agatha teased. The stepsisters ordered her to do all the cleaning, cooking, and laundering. They had soft beds with fluffy pillows and blankets, but when the girl lay down to sleep, she had only a hard bed of straw and had to warm herself in the corner close to the fireplace. Because she was so often covered with soot and cinders from her hearth, her malicious stepsisters called the girl Cinderella. One day, the king sent invitations to a wonderful ball at the palace. Every girl was invited to meet the prince. He was to dance with all the ladies, and then it was hoped choose a bride. When the stepsisters received the invitation, they were thrilled. "Quickly help us to get ready for the ball," they commanded Cinderella, washed and ironed the dresses, and helped the stepsisters choose the prettiest ribbons for their hair. When the stepsisters were ready, Cinderella asked her stepmother if she could go too. "Why, Cinderella," came the sneering answer, "you have no clothes and are covered with tatters and dirt. We would be ashamed of you." And with a laugh, the vicious stepmother and stepsisters were gone. Cinderella burst into tears. "Oh, how I wish I could go too," she wailed. "If only I had a fairy godmother who could make my wishes come true." Instantly, in a cloud of silver dust, there appeared a prim, gray-haired lady carrying a magic wand, the fairy godmother. "Well then," she said, "here I am. Now let's get down to business." She told Cinderella to bring a large pumpkin, 6 gray mice, and a fat whiskered rat, and 2 slender lizards. With a dip and a swirl of the fairy godmother's magic wand, the pumpkin became a coach, the mice became horse, the rat a jolly coachman with a big mustache, and the lizard's fancy footman. For the finished Cinderella's torn dress was transformed into a satin gown. On her dainty feet were sparkling glass slippers. "Now mind your home before midnight," Cinderella warned the fairy godmother. "At the stroke of 12, everything will disappear. Your coach will become a pumpkin again, and your clothes will return to rags." Cinderella nodded and climbed into the magnificent coach. When she arrived at the palace, the townspeople were curious to know who this mysterious beauty was. Even her stepmother and stepsisters did not recognize her. The prince rushed to welcome her and instantly fell in love. He danced every dance with Cinderella and would dance with no other. Everyone could see that the prince and the mysterious lady had fallen in love. Cinderella was so happy and excited that she forgotten about the passing time. When she heard a palace clock begin to strike 12, Cinderella rushed out of the door and down the steps as quickly as her little feet could carry her. She never even turned around to wave goodbye to the prince. In her hurry, Cinderella did not notice that she lost one of the glass slippers at the bottom of the palace staircase. All she could think was getting home before everything disappears into thin air. As the coach hurried away from the palace, Cinderella felt her clothes changing into rags. The horses became mice again. The coachman ran away as a fat rat. The footman slinked away as lizards, and a bruised and dirty pumpkin sat in the middle of the road. When the stepmother and her daughters returned home from the ball, they found Cinderella asleep by the fire and stretched her arms, rubbed her eyes, and asked them to tell her all about the wonderful ball. They told her about the handsome prince and the beautiful woman who had arrived in the magnificent coach. Everyone at the ball had admired her satin gown and sparkling glass slippers. Now the prince was searching to find the lady whose foot fit the lost shoe. As Cinderella listened to the story, she smiled and gently patted her apron pocket. Deep inside was the other glass slipper which her fairy godmother had let her keep. The news spread throughout the village. The prince, who had sunk into a melancholy mood following the ball, was now his energetic self again. He had begun searching for the lady whose foot fit the glass slipper, vowing that none other than she would be his wife. The prince came to Cinderella's house. Capricia and Augusta rushed to try on the shoe. With a push and a squeeze, each one tried to make her foot fit in the delicate slipper. Try as they might, their feet were just too big. Cinderella washed her hands and face, stepped out of the kitchen and said softly, "I would like to try, if I may." The stepmother and stepsisters howled with laughter. "Don't be ridiculous, Cinderella. It can't be you," they said. Cinderella curtsied to the prince and sat down to try on the slipper. Her slender foot slid into it easily, and she then drew the second shoe out of her apron pocket and put that one as well. At that moment, the fairy godmother reappeared and waved her magic wand over the girl. "Be gone, you tattered clothing, good only for a scullery maid," she declared. "Let my deserving good child be dressed as splendidly as a princess." Instantly, Cinderella's shabby dress became the satin gown and had danced in the palace. Her stepmother and stepsisters were flabbergasted, though they didn't want to believe it. They realized that mysterious lady at the ball was none other than their own overworked Cinderella. Now they deeply regretted having treated her so poorly. The handsome prince also recognized Cinderella as his beautiful dancing partner. "This is my bride," he shouted with joy. "I feared I would never find you. Why ever did you leave at the stroke of 12? I am sincerely sorry for leaving you on the palace steps," said Cinderella. "But the story of why I left in such haste would take too long." "Too long?" cried the prince. "Oh, on the contrary, my beloved, we have all the time in the world. On the off chance that he might find the lady he was looking for." The prince had for several days carried with him a beautiful diamond ring, which he now slipped on Cinderella's finger. "Please say you will marry me," he urged. Cinderella accepted at once. In a few days' time, the prince and Cinderella were married in the magnificent palace ceremony, the likes of which the kingdom had not seen for many years. The young couple lived happily ever after. As for the vain and the selfish stepmother and her unpleasant daughters, well, they did not quite as happy. They were never again invited to the palace, and the daughters spent their lives as lonely spinsters. Thank you for watching. Hope you liked the story.